everyone, my name is Sarah and today I am going to be sharing with you my May reading wrap-up. Last month I managed to read 10 books, 9 of which were physical books, and I read one ebook for school. I liked the majority of them. I do have some mediocre feelings about a couple of them. But yeah, I will share all of my thoughts with you. I would have liked to have read a couple more books this month, but like, let's be real, school was very hectic, had a lot of assignments, did a lot of writing, so I'm pretty content with 10 books. The first book I read in May was of course the YA Room's May Book of the Month, and that is Aurora Rising by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. You know this iconic duo. They wrote the Illuminate files together, and Jay has written Nevernight and Amy has written the Ice Wolf series. Oh my god, I love them so much. They are Aussie legends, like taking the world by storm. Wow, respect. I had really high expectations for this book, seeing as I loved the Illuminate files with all of my heart, and it definitely did not disappoint. Again, this is an epic sci-fi novel. It has an amazing cast of characters, and I just didn't want to put it down. And like, this is a thick one, and the fact that I read it in only a couple of days really proves that it is a page turner. What I loved most about this book was of course all the characters. I love every single one of them. Like, I would take a bullet for all of them, especially Finn. Oh my god, my darling! All of the characters are just really witty and sarcastic, and I feel like all of their personalities really play well off of each other. The banter, oh my god, it was brilliant. I was smiling so much while reading this book, and sometimes you just need a book with a bit of humor in it, and Jay and Amy definitely deliver in Aurora Rising. Pick this one up if you haven't already. The next book I read was Again But Better by Christine Riccio. We all know Christine. She is the creator of Pollen Bananas Books, aka one of the first ever booktube channels. She was definitely the first person I ever watched on booktube. I love her videos, oh my god. I still remember when I was in year 9 and my friend showed me this funny YouTube video about this girl mourning character deaths, and I'm like, can relate. Christine has honestly worked so hard on this book, and I loved watching her process and seeing this book become a real thing. Like, that's really magical, and I'm so happy for her. Again But Better is a book about a girl who thinks she's doing college wrong, so she decides to enroll in an overseas semester in London. And there she meets a whole group of more people, and she has to try and figure out what she wants to change in her life and the path she wants to follow. And it's amazing. It was funny, it was swoony, it made me want to travel all across Europe. Like, just get me on a plane, I want to leave. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Like, I'm in college at the moment, and I can really relate to feeling like you're not doing it quite right. And Again But Better really clearly conveyed those feelings. And also, I just had such a blast reading this book. It was so much fun. I didn't want to put it down, so 5 stars. The next book I read in May was Earth to Charlie by Justin Olson, which is a book I've been looking forward to reading for ages, and finally it has been released. This is one of my most anticipated reads of 2019, firstly because it really reminded me of We Are the Ants. This is a book about a boy named Charlie who believes his mother was abducted by aliens, and he desperately wants the same to happen to him. It was really reminiscent of We Are the Ants in that way, because in We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson, the main character thinks that he's being taken up to like a UFO, and an alien race is telling him to decide whether the human race should live or die. But in Earth to Charlie, Charlie is dealing with bullying, and he doesn't really have any friends, so then he meets a new friend, and things start to look up for him. I really shouldn't have been comparing this book to We Are the Ants when I was reading it, because that is one of my ultimate favorite books, and Earth to Charlie kind of fell flat for me because of that. But on its own, this book is really wonderful. And I mean, look at that gorgeous cover. Have you ever seen anything more beautiful? Overall, this was a really touching, heart-wrenching novel. It just didn't quite get to 5 stars for me. This one will be a 4 stars, still really great. If you love heartfelt contemporaries, then definitely pick this one up. The next book I read in May was Sensitive by Elaine Webster. This is such an adorable book. I loved it so much, and it's also really important. This This is a middle grade read about a girl who has skin allergies and eczema, and it's about her trying to live with that and all the constant doctor appointments and the bullying at school. After she moves to a new town, she kind of wants to hide her illness and not tell anyone about it. She makes a new friend, and it really takes her a while to really open up to this person. I love how this book explored a lot of the feelings that we go through when we're a kid. You know, in primary school, we kind of want to be someone else if we're not happy with ourselves, and I really loved the way that was portrayed in this book. Being a middle grade book, this one was really quick to get through. I loved all of the characters. I loved the portrayal of like the mother and how she thought she was doing the right thing, but maybe it wasn't the right thing for our main character. And yeah, it just talked about illness in such a candid way, and I really enjoyed that. Definitely recommend this one. 5 stars. The next book I read in May was Shauna's Great Expectations, which is a new Love Us YA novel about a girl who is the first Indigenous person in her family to go to university. Well, that's how it was pitched to me anyways, but it's very much about falling pregnant in high school and trying to deal with that. I really enjoyed the first half of this novel where it talked about microaggressions and minorities, but the problem really arose for me when Shauna did get pregnant and she had to decide whether to keep the baby or to abort it. I thought this was going to be a really strong, positive book about choice and making the decision that's right for you, but it did come across very anti-abortion. Like, some of the things that the characters said was, oh my god, like I could not. It was just too much at times. And the fact that the mother character was like, I would not let you abort this baby, that was, okay. Let me take a breath for a minute. So I got halfway in and I just couldn't fathom the anti-abortion messages that this book had. This book really wasn't for me. I DNF'd it, and yeah, I'm quite disappointed by this one, unfortunately. The next book I read was All That Invisible Space by Anna Morgan, which I absolutely adored. Oh my god. This is another Love Us YA novel. It's about the mystery of the Somerton Man, and it's a contemporary story set in the present day. It's about friendship and fake friends and relationships, and it was so good. But what I loved most about this book was how it dealt with the mystery aspect and the crime, and how this girl had to kind of figure out what happened with the Somerton Man, and she has to do this whole assignment on it, and I really liked the way that was interwoven with the present day story. And then when her teacher goes missing, she has to figure out what really happened and if there's some sort of connection between him and the Somerton Man. I ended up reading this book in a day just because I couldn't wait to see what would happen. It had the same bingeable quality as BuzzFeed Unsolved videos do. Like, I love hearing about crimes and mysteries that I haven't heard of before, and seeing all the evidence and the witnesses, and that's just like, oh, the best thing ever. I am obsessed with BuzzFeed Unsolved, and this is definitely a must read for any Bugara or Shaniac. And of course, it's set in Australia too, so I really love local stories. Anna Morgan is a local author, so you should definitely pick this one up and support Love Us YA. 5 stars for this one as well. The next book I read was Sick Bay by Nova Wheatman, which again was another book that I've been really looking forward to reading. This book is about 2 girls who meet in a sick bay and the friendship that arises after they meet. One of these girls is struggling with changes at home, and one of them has type 1 diabetes, and I loved seeing the representation in both of these characters. I feel like that's really important. But what I loved most was just how wholesome and sweet the friendship was between these 2 girls. It was really reminiscent of my own primary school days, where I used to love hanging out in the sick bay. Like, I was just like these 2. This book is ultimately about learning to be yourself, and that it doesn't matter if you're not like everyone else, because there is no normal. Like, everyone is different. This is definitely a book I would recommend to all middle grade readers. It is absolutely amazing. 5 stars for this one as well. And if you love middle grade, go pick it up. The next book I read was Tuffy by Sarah Crossan, which is amazing. Oh my god. I am a massive fan of Sarah Crossan's work, and Tuffy was no exception. It was absolutely amazing. This is a book about a girl named Allison who's on the run from her home, and she decides to stay with this old woman who has dementia and doesn't realize that Allison isn't meant to be there. It's about the abuse that Allison faced at home. It's about the friendship that she forms with this old lady and the new friendships that she forms with other people in her suburb. This one is told via free verse poetry, which is Sarah Crossan's unique style, and it's just so lyrically and beautifully written. Like, these pages will make you want to weep. That's how good a writer she is. Every single word counts in these pages, and every single one of them tugs at your heartstrings. This is a book that I absolutely raced through. I wanted to know what was gonna happen, and oh my god, it was just such a heartfelt read. The second to last book I read in May was Carpentaria, which is a book I read for school. I don't want to talk too long about this one because I didn't really enjoy it, and it was also for a class I was taking. I study literature in uni, and this was one that we had to study for our literature ethics course. Yeah, so it was like 800 pages, and I couldn't really understand what was happening the whole time because it wasn't told in order. And there was like 50 different characters that we had to follow. I did really appreciate the messages and like how it kind of talked about post-colonialism and Indigenous communities in Australia. But the narrative itself, I didn't love. Like, I loved the themes and everything, and I think it's a really great book to discuss. But just on like a reader enjoyment level, it wasn't for me. And finally, the last book I read in May was Meat Market by Juno Dawson. This is honestly one of my favorite books that I've read all year. It was absolutely incredible. It's definitely my favorite of Juno's work. I just have no words. Like, it was beautifully written. It was such a fast-paced story. I wanted to know what was going to happen the entire time. I felt so incredibly connected to these characters. Like, how does one write characters that well? I just don't understand. It's so good. Meat Market is about this girl who is scouted to become a model, and then she's thrust into this whole industry. She's faced with some pretty challenging things, like she goes through having an eating disorder at some stages, and she sees other people really struggling in this industry as well. And then she is sexually assaulted, and not a lot of people really believe her, and she doesn't know who to tell, if she were to tell anyone even. This book was honestly really frightening to read because I can imagine that things like this actually do happen in the beauty industry. I've never experienced anything like that in my life, and I feel like the modeling industry is something that so many people glamorize, but at its core, it's just really messed up at times. I really loved how Juno explored the darker side of fashion and the things that go on that we don't really hear about, because this is such a necessary and important book. It talks about body positivity and speaking up and not letting sexual predators get away with things. 5 stars absolutely for this one. I would give it all of the stars in the universe if I could. It is just such a brilliant, important book, and seriously, read it, pick it up, it's just brilliant. So these are all the books I read in May. I feel like I had quite a good reading month. I enjoyed the majority of the books I read, which is always lovely. There were a couple of duds, but hey, that's natural as well. If you've read any of these, please do let me know what you thought of them. I always love to hear from you guys. And if any of these are on your TBR, I hope you enjoy them. But that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon. Bye everyone!